So the Democratic Party, the same one that exists now, has been around since the 1820s. First Democrat president, like legitimate Democrat president, would be Andrew Jackson. Great guy, right? Won the Battle of New Orleans. Well, the Battle of New Orleans happened after the end of the war. If you're wondering why I'm pronouncing it New Orleans, not New Orleans, it's better to say the name of the place the way the locals say it. So, and you probably should say place names the way the locals say it. Anyway, the Democrat Party has been around since the 1820s. And everything they've been involved in has been, in one fashion or another, against the founding principles and ideals of the nation. And I'm not saying that because I'm a Republican, because I'm not. I'm an independent. I think the political factions are usurping the power of the people. Why do I say that? Well, they're not constitutionally allowed to exert as much force as they have, but because they had so many people in government at one point in time, they were able to alter how the rest of us could possibly involve ourselves in government by making it so that you had to poll to a certain point to be able to go on to the debate stage. But you also need a shit ton of money to even attempt to run for politics. So anyone who would actually be good for your community can't afford it, especially now, because no one can afford anything in today's economy. Thank you, Democrats. But here's the problem. Democrats have always been anti-American. You could bitch at me, you could say you can't really claim the title of American. Well, you know what? I can. My nation was formed before all these other nations in the Western Hemisphere. We were our own independent entity before all the other nations in the Western Hemisphere. So fuck yourself. I'm gonna call myself an American. Really, I should just call myself a Pennsylvanian, because if our own government won't uphold the Constitution, we don't have a federal government. They are not following the contract. We don't have to listen. But Democrats are anti-American. They're anti-Constitution. They're anti-founding principles. And they have shown this. If you actually look at history, and I'm not talking the bullshit survey courses that are taught by revisionist teachers in government-funded education, talking about primary sources. They fought for slavery. I mean, it's interesting. Everyone loved the movie Lincoln, but I guess you all missed the point of that movie. The Democrats fought fervently against equality, which equality is what our nation does. Equity is not equality. Equity is taking from others to give to someone else, so in the end you're all equal. Problem is, here in the United States, you have the equality of opportunity. Nobody's stopping you from doing anything. If you think they are, that's your own fucking problem. You want to get out of a shit situation? Join the military. I know it's a terrible prospect now, seeing as how the current administration is dead set on getting us into a world war. Probably to solve all the issues they caused with our economy, because the easiest way for our nation to get out of any sort of depression, which is what we are in. I mean, if we were still tied to an actual specie meaning form of money, we would be in a depression. Our dollar is worthless. It's worth less than. It's terrible. And that happened because of COVID. No, because of Democrats. Who were the ones who pushed to continue extending those 2 weeks? Democrats. My governor, same with the governor of the state just north of me, they're guilty of killing their own citizens. Have they been to trial? No. Will they ever see the inside of a courtroom for killing senior citizens with their terrible policies? No. In fact, the person who pushed that in my state is now some sort of, what is it? Assistant Surgeon General? Dr. Levine. He pushed to put sick people into nursing homes. You know what? Killed a lot of Pennsylvanians with that policy. Knew it wasn't going to work. Pulled his own parents out of nursing homes before that policy was implemented. Tell me Levine didn't know what was going to happen. He did. You know, my state used to be the state that had the most returnees. Pennsylvanians used to come home to die. It's not happening after COVID. Why? Because Pennsylvania killed their old people. And no one's in prison for it. But again, the people who pushed these policies, the people who did all this, enforced all of this, they were Democrats. Democrats don't care about you. They care about the power. And that's always been the case. Always been the case since their inception. They only care about the power. So right now, we have an entire political I was going to say party, but we'll just say faction. Oh, hold on. We're going to pause. Ready? And forgive me. The pollen has been really bad. And it hasn't rained, so the pollen's still all over the place. And frankly, if I don't need to, I don't use the air conditioner or the heater. So my windows are just open, with the exception of my office. But anyway, the Democrats have always been anti-American. They're anti-equality. They're anti-freedom. They want power, and that's what they want. That's exactly what they have right now, and they are using it to destroy your rights, my rights, everybody's rights. Because if they get rid of the Constitution, then they can do whatever they like. And a lot of that is a serious problem. I mean, it's a serious problem in itself, but a lot of it is social conditioning. They have conditioned citizens to be afraid to exercise their own rights. Why do I say that? Well, you know, I'm a Pennsylvanian. I live in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is an open carry state. The only place you can't walk around with a weapon strapped on visibly to your person is Philadelphia. Why? Well, it's a first-class city. Why is it a first-class city? Because it was the first capital of the country. But let's not go there. New York. People are afraid to walk around armed, openly armed. Why? Especially now, especially these days. Why aren't you finding a way to defend yourself? Most of the time, all it takes is for someone to see that there is an obstacle, and they won't perpetrate the crime. You see it all the time. Ring doorbells. People try to break in, they see the Ring camera, and then they walk away or they make excuses. Okay? Well, if you're openly armed, no one's going to fuck with you. The only people who will fuck with you are state agents and state actors. Because, oh my God. Or your fellow citizens who are so conditioned to be afraid that they view you as a threat if you've never even actually interacted with them, just because you're exercising not only your Second Amendment rights, on a federal level, but here in Pennsylvania, Article 1, I believe after all of the restructuring, it's Section 27. You see, because Pennsylvania's got the most democratic constitution, although we still practice Republican government. We aren't a democracy, we are a republic, which the Democrats also successfully changed in the minds of the citizens of the United States. The first one to turn around and start throwing democracy around was Woodrow Wilson. But he had a caveat, he had a qualifier. He said representative democracy. You know who dropped representative from it? FDR, the man who went 12 years in the White House. 12 years. And he drastically altered the United States and how our nation operated in those 12 years. He stacked the court. He basically bought and paid for justices. Now, all of you bitching about the current Supreme Court, Jesus Christ, look at history. Get educated. Stop being so goddamn ignorant. I know ignorance is bliss. I know it's enjoyable. I wish I could go back there. I'd love to be as stupid as the vast majority of you when it comes to our nation and its history. It'd be great. I'd be sitting there going, oh, this is fine, like that stupid dog in the meme. Instead, I'm more of the grumpy cat, I guess. I look around, I see a bunch of uneducated people. I wonder why they're even allowed to exercise rights that they don't understand. Then I remember we have a constitution, and they have every right to exercise rights they don't understand. They're allowed to be that stupid. But that in and of itself creates problems, because now we have people in government who are actively refusing to uphold the Constitution, something they have to take an oath to uphold and defend, and should they not uphold and defend the Constitution, then they are removed from office and barring from ever being there ever again. That is something that it's 535 members of Congress, pretty much every single one of them has failed to uphold and defend the Constitution. I say pretty much everyone because there are a few holdouts. Why are they holding out? Well, in the case of at least one, they actually uphold and defend the Constitution. Others do it for party reasons. Selectively. Regardless, most have broken their oath of office. Most are actually ineligible to ever hold any government office in the United States ever again. And yet we don't do anything about that. We just sit there and laugh and joke about it. We laugh about Nancy Pelosi and her insider trading. Most Congress people involve themselves in insider trading. It's a crime for the average citizen, but, Congress can. Yeah, but there's a problem with that because there's actually something in the Constitution that says Congress cannot pass a law that affects the citizens but doesn't affect them. and vice versa. But they have, and they do. And we just sit there and take it. What makes a nation? Borders, shared beliefs, equal application of the law. We don't have any of that right now here in the United States. I mean, it's kind of funny. Someone pointed this out. Pretty much everyone turns around and goes, the United States is. It's the United States are. We're 50 independent governments that have signed into a mutual contract. The Union. That was something I was talking with the boss about. Boss man here. He has a friend who is also a historian. His friend is from Virginia. His friend is like me. I refuse to call it the Civil War because that's revisionist history. It's the War of Southern Secession, or simply the War of Secession. For that Virginian, it's the War of Aggression. My boss laughed when I pointed that out. He's like, yeah, my friend thinks that too. I was like, your friend is right. Primary sources from the time do not call it a civil war. You don't see civil war until you get Woodrow Wilson's History of the United States and Its People, which, if you know history, you would know that that entire volume of history is revisionist history. Woodrow Wilson wiped out some of the most important figures in early American history because of their race, sex, or beliefs, which is anti-American. But what could I possibly know? I'm just a guy with a history degree who takes care of a piece of property that is slowly getting encroached by a bunch of people moving out of the city because cities are so goddamn terrible they have to get out. But then those people bring their policies here, and now we have to deal with their shit. Like, my boss is actually afraid to do things that he is legally allowed to do. Why? Because we have new neighbors, and they don't know any better. So, we're just not going to scare the new neighbors by doing what we've always done, we've always been allowed to do. We don't burn our brush anymore. We cut down dead trees that are going to be an issue. We cut vines out. We try to maintain a healthy ecosystem here. It was a lot easier before a housing development decimated old growth forest. They killed trees that were more than 200 years old. Why? So they could put in a bunch of fucking cookie cutter townhomes. Populate it with people who will never assimilate with our township, and certainly not with our way of life here. I mean, they don't. They don't understand the concept of trespassing. They see green space on their map and they go, I can go here. No, you can't. You're trespassing. If I see you here again, I will be calling the police. And I hate having to deal with the state agents. Why? Because they're also not allowed to come onto the property. Unless they show up and tell me why they need to be here, we're not going to let them on. They've kind of taken that out on us over the years. Because there is a state ward who lives across the street from our driveway, and every time he causes shit, which is a lot, they just block our driveway, so none of us can leave. And they'll be there for hours, and we just can't leave. They do this on purpose, in my regard, because I have told them to get the fuck off the property. Where's this go? Not where you want to go. Turn around, get off the property. Well, I need to be back here. Well, why? Tell me why. Well, I don't have to tell you anything. Well, yeah, you do. You want access to this property. You need to tell me why you need to be here. I don't gotta tell you shit. Find out later there's an armed gunman wandering around on the power lines, which, as I sit here talking to you, are not even 20 yards away. Armed gunman wandering around my farm right near my house. Cops wouldn't tell me. Don't know why. Would have been nice to know that there was some crazy person wandering around with a firearm. Couldn't have done anything at the time, didn't have any firearms in the house. But, would have been nice to know that that person that I more than likely would have gone up to and said, hey man, you're fucking trespassing, get off the property, could have shot me. But, the cops refused to inform me of this. Anyway, getting off track here. Getting way off track. But not really. It's an interesting thing. So the vast majority of the people, and I shouldn't even say the vast majority, it's more than likely all of the individuals who have moved into these townhomes right on the edge of our property that destroyed our brook because they were able to pay the EPA to ignore the very restrictive laws that were put in place under Obama concerning waterways. They're all Democrats. They all vote Democrat. It doesn't work out for our township. Our township, heretofore, had been Republican. Still is Republican right now, but only by 5 votes. And before you get into it, yeah, we actually do have very trustworthy poll workers here. They're members of our community. We know them. That's the thing, is we had community here in our township. We used to go to the fire station to vote. Everyone could just walk there. It was great. Whole township on voting day just walked to our fire station. We all sat there warming up, chatting as we went to vote. Say, hey, how you been? Hey, did you see this? Did you see that? Did you hear about this? Oh, I saw they finally tore down that abandoned house. Or, hey, look out, there's some coyotes running around. We don't have that anymore. Our community has a bunch of people who don't care about the rest of the community. They love their little enclave inside of our community. But outside of that, if they don't like what they see, they're going to call the authorities, even though they've got no right to call the authorities on people who are exercising rights that exist. If I were a smartass, I'd have drawn it. One of those, the more you know panels, and then just been like, whoop. But right now, with the Democrats in charge of the executive branch, our nation has fallen to shit. We don't have a nation in the sense of how you define nations with the proper definition. We're not changing definitions anymore. Frankly, you need a dictionary from the turn of the century, because modern dictionaries have changed definitions so often they're no longer reliable sources of information. What's a woman? An adult human female. They have Y chromosome. Is it double X? No, it's double X. They have double X chromosome. Because, the Y looks like a penis. That's how you know it's a guy. Anyway. The simple fact that the current executive branch is been unchecked in all of their unconstitutional actions should be enough to tell you that your rights don't matter. The government doesn't care about you. The government doesn't care about your rights. The government doesn't care about the law, and certainly not the Constitution. The government doesn't care about the contract that they must follow to continue to exist. For the most part, even your states are like that. I know my state is. Mail-in ballots are unconstitutional just because a bunch of justices that are elected by the same place that elects every state office in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. Frankly, Philadelphia should be a city-state at this point. They are too big to be a part of the state. They decide everything for the state. That's tyranny. A tiny little fucking place on the eastern side of the state that doesn't do much of anything anymore at all forces their political will upon the rest of the state. That's tyranny. Philadelphia should be a city-state. They should have no say in our internal politics here in Pennsylvania. They should deal with their own shit. Same with Pittsburgh. Should be removed. Most cities in the United States should be removed from state involvement. They should be their own separate entities. They're too big. They were never meant to be this big. Our nation was meant for an egalitarian society. If you don't know what that means, find a dictionary from the last century. But things aren't looking good, everybody. Things are not looking good at all. Especially now that we're being invaded on the southern border. Violent overrunning of the border is an invasion. Again, find a dictionary from the last century, because it will tell you the truth. But we're going to call it here. Pretty sure this was coherent. Pretty sure it kind of flowed in a linear fashion. There was the pause there for me to blow my nose because I was tired of trying to suck that mucus back up and it wasn't working. It probably was annoying as hell for the 5-10 minutes it was going on. But, yeah, things ain't looking good. Things ain't looking good, and it can all fall at the feet of the current administration. Because the current administration has done some nasty shit in 3 years to absolutely decimate the United States. The United States are suffering. But the factions love it when this happens because it means they get power. So, fun stuff. Hooray. Have a good weekend.